Now let's add some large pivots for the wings. So I want a little bit of geometry here on the side. Let me go ahead and open it up. On the side here to kind of integrate the wings and give it a little bit more mass as it connects into the pod. So what we can do is actually draw out our own custom shape here. So let's go to the side view here. In this case it's the front because of the way that we're oriented in the X direction. So let's go ahead and go up and draw our own spline out. So let's go ahead and just draw out let's draw out a Bezier spline. So I want to kind of come along here, and you can match this up exactly if you want, but as you click and drag you can get something that is a little bit smoother. You can see you can start to pull out the handles. So come down here, maybe extend a bit of it out here, and then maybe it curves back, and you don't have to make it exactly like mine. I just want to give it kind of a mixture of mechanical and then also sort of an organic kind of a shape. So maybe pull back here and then up here, and then once you get to the end we can just say close spline and it'll close that up and make a complete spline. Now let's say I want this point to be nice and sharp. I can right click and say I want hard interpolation on that point, and I'll kind of move it up a little bit. Then we can come in here and manipulate any of these that we want to. So I can change the handles, move the position to get the curve exactly the way that I want it. Okay, so let me go ahead and just manipulate this a little bit more. I think it's pretty close to being fine for what we need it to do. Okay, now anytime you want to have a sort of hole cut out, so thinking about this, we're going to make this sort of a piece of sheet metal. If we want a hole cut out, we just need to include a spline inside of this spline here. So let's say we want a couple of pieces cut out. Well, let's go ahead and draw out some new splines. So just using Bezier once again, I can come down here and I can start to draw out a spline. Maybe coming in here, and we'll say close spline, and then we can manipulate this. So thinking about this shape, this is going to be cut out. Whatever shape we create is going to be cut out from the overall shape. Okay, so let me go ahead and pull this back. So I don't know, something like that. Again, use your own judgment and create your own look here. So maybe something like that, and then maybe we'll want to do the same thing back here. So again, we can create another spline. And you can see each time I do this, it's creating a different spline here. So we'll come down, and this time kind of come in here, and then we'll close it off. Let's go ahead and rotate these handles a bit. And I'm going to go ahead and move it. And let's do the same thing down here. All right, so now what we do, once we have that done, we can go ahead and take all of these splines. So we're talking about the main spline and then the two splines that I placed inside here. And let's go ahead and make these one spline. So to do that, again, we're going to go to connect objects and delete by right clicking. That's going to connect them together and then delete all the individual splines. So now we're left with this single spline here. Okay, let's go ahead and move it out here. So we'll move it to the side a bit. And I think it's a little bit large, so what I want to do is go ahead and I'm going to center the axis, and then I'm just going to kind of scale it down a little bit, kind of move it up and back and kind of put it in the right position here. So I think maybe something like that. Now let's go ahead and add our thickness. So we'll add an extrude NURBS and drop the spline underneath. And then we can decide how thick we want it to be. Okay, give it a little bit of thickness. Okay, we can go to caps. We can change these to fillet caps, which will allow us to get kind of a bevel out here. So depending on what kind of bevel you want and how tight you want it to be, you can dial this up or down. Okay, I actually want maybe a little bit more of a machined kind of a bevel, so I'll leave that at 1. Okay. You want to keep in mind that as you start to increase this, you can get some strange artifacts here in the cutouts, so just be aware of that. Okay, now you can see up here where one of my handles has gotten off, it's actually, you can see it's much more apparent in here. Okay, where I've kind of messed up with that handle. And so let's go into the top view here and go to points. And actually that point is just off, so I'm just going to move it back into position. And we'll go ahead and let's change that up. I just want it to be as close as possible here, but I'm just going to eyeball it rather than doing too much to it. Okay, I'm going to turn that back on and see it's much better. All right, so let's go ahead and add another piece on the outside of this. So again, go to the side view, and this time I'm going to start with a circle and modify it. So let's go ahead and bring our circle in here, and I want to create kind of a little bit of a teardrop shape. So let me go ahead, decrease the size of that. Okay, kind of right in there. Let's go ahead and make it editable, and then we can manipulate the resulting points. So I can go ahead and take this point up here. I can take that down a little bit, come in here and rotate this point. Okay, if you want to add another point, you can right click and say create point, click on your curve, your spline, and then you've got a new point there that you can manipulate. Okay, so we'll do the same thing here. Let's grab that circle and move it out. Okay, let's add another extrude NURBS, drop the circle inside of it. This time we'll make something that's a little bit different here. So let's go ahead and on the caps, let's set this to fillet cap. Let's set the back one to none. And then we can come in here and on the fillet cap, we have the fillet type. We can change this type. So right now it's set to a convex fillet, but there's a number of different options here. We have a half circle, which we can see if you start to increase the number of steps, which gives you this sort of a rim around it, which is kind of cool. So you can experiment with some of these convex, concave, where it's kind of pushed in. Okay, 1 step and 2 step. So you can get a little bit more complex with what you're doing. I'll just do a half circle here, you know, and you can change the radius if you want it to be a little bit different, a little bit bigger. And I want to increase the size of the back here, so I'm just going to do that real quickly by just choosing a fillet cap and increasing the size. We could deform it, but I'm going to go ahead and just do it that way. Make it a little bit thicker. Okay, and then to create the actual pivot where the wing will pivot, we can just use a primitive cylinder. Okay, we can go ahead and orient it in the right direction, so go positive Z, and let's put it in sort of the center of this piece. Okay, I'll go ahead and stick it just into the side there and let it extend out a little bit. Okay, now for this piece, we're actually going to have it connect with the other piece. So on the caps, I'm actually going to leave those on even though it's penetrating in, because there's going to be something butted up against the side here. So I'm actually even going to turn on fillet and decrease the radius so we get a little bit of a bevel there. I can take the segments down though. Okay, so now that we've got our sort of wing pivot, the next thing that we want to do is go ahead and draw out the top view of the wing. So we'll draw it out flat and then deform it. So we'll go ahead and do that next.